Mr. Klein here, and the purpose of this video right here is we're going to look at our first project for the year for social studies. Social studies project number 1 is going to be creating an imaginary island map. So let's go ahead and let's get started. Okay, let's get into the introduction of this project. So let's look at the worksheet that you received in class. Let's go over to summary. You're going to create a detailed map of an island on a poster. Essentially, you're creating a map using latitude and longitude and stuff like that of an imaginary island you create, and your island's going to have some particular features. The materials, all you're going to need is one half-size poster board. Either get one of those pre-cut poster boards or get a regular size poster board and cut it in half hamburger style. No full-size poster boards, please. The great part about my projects is you usually have to do them on a half poster board, so if you fold it and cut it in half, you'll have to use it later this year. Also, colors and markers, and we'll talk about that in a second. So that's what you're going to need for the project in terms of materials and stuff, and also your imagination. So let's go over to required elements. Let's talk about what your poster is going to have on it if you want to get a good grade, and also to show that you know what I'm looking for in this project. So your poster must have the following information. You need to have a map of an island nation, any size you want, but we'll talk about size in a minute. A capital city, a national flag since it is a country, at least 3 cities. You can have more. I want them labeled with names. 3 different landforms labeled with names. At least 3 named geographic features. Lines of latitude and longitude where appropriate. A map scale and a map legend. Okay? So that's what the design thing should have. So let's look at some awesome tips to help your project be awesome. You could have it pretty much whatever size you want, but it should probably be 300 miles long by 300 miles wide maximum size. Now you might be asking yourself, Mr. Klein, how am I going to know this? Well, that's why we have latitude and longitude. If you remember us talking, we talked about lines of latitude and longitude. They have pretty much fixed distances, if you will. A degree of latitude is about 70 miles exactly. Not quite, but for our purposes, we'll say it is 70. Lines of longitude vary the closer you get to the poles. But for our project, what we're going to say, we're going to pretend that the lines of longitude are the same distance apart, just like a line of latitude, 70 miles. So your map should be a proper square grid. So in other words, your map grid, each square of latitude and longitude will be 70 miles by 70 miles, or 490 square miles. Your map probably should at most have 6 grid squares of latitude and 6 grid squares of longitude. So if you make a grid square of 6 squares long by 6 squares wide and put your island on the inside of it, that's perfectly fine. Now you might want to have your grid squares be 2, 3, 4 inches wide. You might want to play with that before you finalize it with a marker or something like that when you're working on a map scale. Your landforms, you can include mountains, rivers, lakes, gulfs, plains, deserts, swamps, marshes, things like that. Also, so that whenever I ask for 3 different landforms and geographic features, okay, we'll have those, and you'll look at the example, and you can kind of double count for this. You should be reasonable about what geographic landforms you have. You won't have a tundra, okay, for example, at latitudes near the equator. So 10 degrees north, you're not going to have like an ice sheet or something like that. At the same time, though, you're not going to have a jungle at 80 degrees north either, because that's like almost by the North Pole. Take a look at an atlas or Google Earth for some inspiration. Look at stuff around that latitude, lines of latitude that you might be interested in. See what the land looks like and kind of duplicate it using your imagination on your island map. Make sure your map legend reflects the scale of your map. You could make the grid with latitude and longitude lines. Figure out the size of each line you have, and then the scale. So we want to make sure our scale, make sure the map legend stuff reflects the scale of the map. So as you'll see that I have my map laid out on the scale just to the same inches scale as I drew the lines on. You want to keep your poster neat and clean. Part of the scoring is for neatness of your project. We'll look at the rubric in a minute. And also be creative in your design. Have some fun creating something unique and that you're proud of when you turn it in. Okay, don't turn it in just because you have a grade. You want to make something nice, and that if it's a great project and I choose to put it on the wall at school, you can say, hey, that's my project. Isn't it awesome? To your classmates and stuff, and they'll be like, yeah. So what makes an awesome project? Well, maybe we need to look at the rubric and see how we're going to grade that. Okay, So the rubric looks really big and really detailed. That's right, because I want to make sure you know exactly what I'm looking for and exactly how I'm grading it. I go by the awesome, okay, poor, and missing scale. In this case, awesome is worth 12 points, okay is worth 8, poor is worth 4, missing is worth 0. Neatness is the first category. The project is neatly done and is totally presentable. In other words, even if you make mistakes, you clean it all up, you erase it, you do a good job with that. National capital. The island has a nation with a clear name and symbol showing its location. Same goes with the national flag. Okay, it's creative in its design and it's good looking. The nation has 3 cities that are named and labeled on the map. Okay, if you don't have those 3, you start losing points on that. The landforms, you have 3 landforms that are labeled on the map. You have 3 named geographic features that are labeled on the map, like I said. The map has straight lines of latitude and longitude, and they're accurately named on the map. Okay, if you don't equally space them, you'll lose some points. And if the lines aren't straight, you'll lose further points. The map scale needs to be accurately spaced. You'll see that in a minute. If the lines aren't equally spaced, you'll lose some points. And if you forget the map scale, you won't get any points at all. Same thing for the map legend. Make sure you have your proper symbols and labels. If you're missing 1 or 2, you might lose some. If you have more than 2, you lose some more map legend missing. Geographical correctness, that's just what I was talking about. Like, you don't want that, like the tundra or like a ginormous ice sheet near the equator, but at the same time, at the North Pole next to Santa's workshop, there isn't a jungle. Okay, so geographic features are reasonable and match conditions at similar latitudes. That's what I said. Go look around at Google Earth and something like that, and that can help you out with it. So, you want to know what a good map is, so let's go ahead and let's look at what a sample map looks like. So, I sat down and I created a map, and here we go. Okay, this is, I gave my country a name. Okay, I didn't ask for that, but it might be a good idea. This is Awesomenia. Okay, so we have our map. It's not on, like, of course, the full-size poster board. This sample is just, you know, on a sheet of paper, but we can look and we can see what goes on with the rubric. For instance, neatness, okay? You can see it's neat, nice and neat. All my lines are straight. Everything's nice and neatly clean and colored and stuff like that. I have a capital, okay? By the way, if you're looking for inspiration, for example, this one I did everything with, like, Formula 1 race cars, okay? With the exception of, like, the shape of the island. I could have shaped it like a racetrack. But everything on here, all this map, all these names and stuff, all have a common theme. So whatever you want to go, just pick a theme and just go from there. I have a capital. It's labeled with a star, okay? And I have it on the map legend. The capital is St. Senna. I have at least 3 cities: Verstappen, Kvyat, Toro Rosso, and Vettel right there. Okay, so I have my cities. They're marked and they're named. I have some landforms, and here's where you can double dip with it. For instance, this area right here, the Maldonado Marshes, okay, is a marsh. So not only do I have it colored and labeled here on the map legend, the name of the feature is right here. So I'm naming the feature itself, and I'm telling you what type of feature it is. Same for Mounts Kimi, Alonso, and Hamilton. I have Williams Bay right here. The Marussia Marsh, okay, the Scuderia River, the Nazar River, and the Botas River, and also Lake Ricardo right here. All of these things right here are all labeled. So they're not just, they're named geographic features, but also telling you what type of geographic feature it is. Another thing I did was I color-coded. So we have a forest and a plain. These are all forests, plains, marshes, mountains. Okay, and then I put a little bit of a sand. I could go right there and I could put it and add it into that. That way you know what that's talking about. So I might lose a point right here if I was grading it. I do have my capital. I'm sorry, my national flag. See, red, yellow, green. Okay, and also I have my lines of latitude and longitude. Okay, you see what I did was I used the bounding box. Okay, and I measured out the same distance, and I made a nice, neat grid, and I used my ruler to draw it. You might want to use a yardstick or a meter stick or something like that, or even a tape measure, and you can do that. These are 2.5 inches apart. You might want to go with 4 or even 5 inches, anywhere from 2 to 4 to 5 inches on your poster for your grid lines, but you want to make sure that they're even. They form nice, neat squares. I labeled my latitude, 2 degrees east, 3 degrees east, 4 degrees east, okay, 52 north, 51 north, right here. So that's where this would be located. Okay, this would be located in Northern Europe or something like Northwestern Europe. So these forests and plains and a couple mountains and some marshes with some rivers with a lake would obviously fit in with the geography of that latitude. So it checks out right there. My map legend has everything I talked about. Okay, and then I added my scale right here. Okay, like I told you, each one of these lines right here is 2.5 inches. Well, what I did was I did 2 inches, and since each 2.5 inches is equal to 70, what I did right here was 2 inches is equal to about 56 miles. I went ahead and I did the math. So at 1 inch is 28 miles, 2 inches is 56. So I made a real simple scale right here. Go ahead and do it. You might have to have your parents help you out with that math for that. And if you have any questions, let me know. I can tell you an inch value or even centimeters if you want to go metric with it to make it really easy for you to figure out what your scale will look like. Okay, but don't sweat too much. I'm not going to sit there with the tape measure and, oh my God, they're like 1/4 of an inch off. I'm taking off points. You know, I'm going to be reasonable. So try your best on it, and I most likely won't ding you points if I see you gave it a really good effort. I just want it to not be like obviously not even. So I have a couple other questions for this. When is it due? For the 2015-16 school year, it's going to be due on the 4th of September 2015. 2 other questions. Can your parents help you? Yes, they can. Just make sure you do most of the work. Don't go up to your parents and say, Mom, Dad, I have this project. Can you do it for me? No, this is for me to see that you know things about latitude and longitude, and you can use your imagination and figure out stuff like that. Your parents can help you, but don't make them do it yourselves. And parents, you're hearing it from me, okay? Don't let them bluff you into doing it. Make them work on it, because that's I want to see the knowledge that they have for the project. And what if your project's late? You will lose 1 letter grade for each school day it is late. Of course, it's if you're absent or something like that, or my absentee policy applies. But Friday the 4th of September 2015 is the Friday before Labor Day weekend. That way I can grade them over the weekend, and you can have everything. I can have everything graded in the grade book, and that way you know what your child made on it by the time you come back. So that's your summary of your project. Okay, what you'll do is you'll take a half poster board. You'll create an imaginary island, nation. You'll give it a capital, some cities, some geographic features. You'll put it on latitude and longitude, create a map legend so the map reader can understand what is there. And go ahead and go wild and use your imagination to come off. So, as always, if you have any questions, please let me know. Thanks.